which is to say that although I have studied economics and political science and urban planning, really I'm a practitioner in economic development. I spent 15 years of my life trying to make London more competitive as a city. And I learned a lot from trying to do this because it's a good example of how you have to combine in a city, on the one hand, good economic development policies, but on the other hand, good urban policies, good infrastructures, good land use, and at the same time, leadership and governance become very important. So I will talk today a lot about the relationship between economics, place, and leadership and governance. These three things. In cities, you get the better paying jobs, the higher value added, the higher tax contribution. You get the jobs that are at the top of the value chains. So there is a basic phenomena that the geography of the economy is one of what we call spikes. Yeah? This theory has been outlined many times, and that we are moving into a period where these spikes are becoming more apparent. The fourth point to make is really about globalization. Anna has already introduced this theme, but the idea here essentially is this, that as I've explained, more and more is contested through international competition. Therefore, it's important for cities, as it were, or nations to be able to participate in these flows. The junction boxes of globalization are cities, right? Cities are the places that house the transnational corporations. They provide the gateway functions through airports and ports and everything else. They provide the logistics platforms. They provide the digital junction boxes as well of communication and exchange. They provide the places. The impact of that crisis has not been to negate these things. It has been to accelerate them. The crisis has accelerated global integration. It has accelerated the drive for sustainability. It has accelerated the need for quality of life. It has accelerated the requirement for cities to provide identity for nations and for regions. Barcelona and Catalonia in the last 25 years have been very successful in moving up the international rankings. Yeah? Barcelona is now city number 4 in Europe for business, if you listen to Cushman and Wakefield Eurocities Monitor. So the point I'd want to make is this. If you think about what happened to cities in the crisis, different cities were exposed to different elements of the crisis. Some were very exposed to the banking crisis, others not. Some very exposed to recession, others not. Some benefited from policy responses, some didn't. Some are really impacted now by the public finance crisis that is happening in some countries. Others were really impacted by the global economic shift. Now, when we think about leadership and governance of cities, if you accept my idea that in principle cities offer a huge amount in a global era, and we've talked about productivity, employment, sustainability, identity, all of those things. But the only way to achieve these advantages is if you unlock urban assets and you optimize urban performance, then it's no surprise that leadership becomes a very important ingredient. If you like, we could say in the end that the competitive advantage of the different qualities of leadership of cities is very important. Stay open to the world. As you know, we've talked a lot about the advantage of diversity, but the problem is when you have a crisis, there is still a tendency for people to blame the foreigners. Yeah? Somehow they have caused the problem. It's not true. They haven't caused the problem, and they're part of the solution. So it's about really orientating that way, and then building national and local alliances, these vertical alliances between local, regional, national, federal governments. So these were the 10 Barcelona principles, and now that we are beginning to talk about cities after the crisis, not cities in the crisis, the Barcelona principles, I think, offer a very good way to start building the next economy, which is the mechanism for taking the advantages of cities in this new global system out and making them work not just for cities, but for regions and nations